This is Chapter 2 of A Rare Bird, The Hunt Begins. Andrew couldn't catch a wink of sleep. He was ready to wake up and meet up with his brother. He noticed Tina was sleeping right next to him, for it was still her room. He started to shove her until she woke up. "I have to go find Trickster." Tina rushed up to get ready. Andrew did the same. "So you're coming with me, I take it?" Tina kissed him on the lips. "Of course, you might need backup." Andrew stared blankly at the wall, thinking he might have to let his brother escape from Tina and the guards. Tina and Andrew walked out to see Ava locked to the door. Ava was awake, leaning up against the door with angry eyes. "Thanks for knocking me out earlier, Tina. Sleeping on the ground really did wonders for my back," she said sarcastically. Andrew glared at Tina, whose eyes were twinkling as she was proud of herself. Andrew rushed to Ava and unlocked her cuffs. "Are you okay?" He helped her up as she rubbed her throbbing wrist. "Yeah, I guess." Tina and Ava shared a death glare toward each other. Andrew walked out the door and Tina sized Ava up like she was scum. "You're not going to chain her? What if she takes off?" Andrew stopped in his tracks and sighed for the waste of time. Andrew turned around and faced Ava as she frowned at him. He stuck his sword at her. "You try anything and your mother will pay the price for that mistake." She glared at them both until Andrew led the way. Ava found weakness in Andrew's threats since she knew he did care about her. Ava turned her head back slightly to look at Tina as she was feeling her cruel gaze. "Don't even think about it," Tina warned. Tina held her sword at Ava's back, so she turned back around. Andrew led the girls up a hill which held a high windmill at the very top. Tina looked at the view of Core City and the woods surrounding it. "What is this place?" Tina asked. Andrew reached for a key that was hidden in a lantern next to the door. "Trickster and I trained here before we entered the Soldier Academy. We were just kids when we found the place." Ava kept quiet and looked at the woods, wondering how her mother was. Andrew grabbed Ava's arm and yanked her up the many stairs that eventually led to a small room with old drawings of sword fights on the ceilings and walls. Old toys of soldiers and wooden swords lay on the ground. A small mattress was in the room. Andrew and Trickster made themselves a hidden clubhouse at a young age, and no one else was to know of the place. That is why Trickster hid himself there. Trickster was sitting on the mattress with his eyes focused and glazed over on his blood-stained sword. The floor creaked as Andrew walked over to Trickster. He looked to Andrew as he pulled Ava into view. Trickster noticed Tina behind them both. "What's Tina doing here?" Andrew was going to explain, but Tina interrupted with a stern glare. "I'm here to stop you if I must." Trickster stood with red eyes. He spent his time waiting and crying. He threw his sword to the ground in front of them all to show he wasn't going to try anything. He ignored Tina and walked over to the girl. He grabbed her by the wrist and pulled her away from Andrew. "You are a rare bird, aren't you?" His eyes were smiling at her mark. Tina lingered in the back as Andrew looked at the drawings on the wall. "I've forced a lot of information out of the Novas over the years, and I have learned enough to gain a thirst. I've learned of this great tree. The Tree of Life is what they called it." Ava's ears grew alert. She needed to learn this just as much as the others. "The Novas spoke of death and what has to happen after. Their energy is supposed to go into the earth and be recycled by the Tree of Life. After their energy goes to the planet, they themselves go to the Promised Land." Trickster snickered. Andrew watched Ava closely. "This Promised Land exists behind the door of the Tree of Life. The Nova's power lies beyond that door. I want to open it, but I don't know how." Trickster walked behind Ava and grabbed her shoulder strongly. "That's why, Ava, I need you. You're my missing puzzle piece." Ava cringed by Trickster's close breath as he whispered into her ear, "Help me solve this puzzle. How do I open the door?" Ava then heard Mother Earth's soft voice again. "The Promised Land is no paradise." Ava closed her eyes to listen closely. "The Nova's hate begins to kill me. Only malice, revenge, and chaos remain of their tainted energy now. Fear what lies behind the door." Ava pulled away. It clicked that the Nova's hatred was building up inside the Tree of Life, and the tainted energy they left behind was causing the planet to die. Andrew walked up to Ava and Trickster. "Yeah, but there's one problem. She doesn't even know anything about her ancestors. She didn't even know she was a Nova." Trickster's perplexed look put a stop to his plan to figure out how to open the door. Ava shook her head as she ended up putting the pieces together. "When a Nova dies, we revert to the pure energy from whence we were created. We fade back into the earth." Ava ran her fingers through her bangs. Her arched eyebrows squished together. "And the Tree of Life recycles our energy to be reused for the planet's health. That's what you said, isn't it?" Trickster stared deeply into her green eyes. Yeah, so? Ava bit her lip. You have slain my people in a violent purge of selfish gain, she snarled. Ava walked toward Trickster as he stood a few steps away from her, fearing her warning. After you killed them, they entered the Promised Land inside the Tree of Life. Behind that door lie my people. Nothing but hate and chaos lie beyond that door because of what you humans have done. Ava sneered. Andrew and Tina's eyebrows hit the roof. My people want revenge. Are you sure you want me to let them out? You know who they're coming after, don't you? Ava smiled wickedly. That's quite a bluff. It is called the Promised Land for a reason, and I seek it above all else. Trickster's tone lowered. Ava held her ground as her knowledge came from the planet itself. The Promised Land is a false shadow of the Word. The blood you stole from my people's bones has brought nothing but malice into the Promised Land. It is no paradise. Andrew looked to Ava surprised. He assumed Ava really knew nothing, but she could speak to the planet and feed her self-knowledge. Trickster wasn't so impressed. There is an ultimate power that you just don't want me to find, a power to rule all worlds. The group then heard a strange beeping sound. Trickster pulled Tina, whose back was to everyone, back around. He pulled a tracking device from her hands and smashed it on the ground. Too late, she said, as the troops all shouted from the bottom of the windmill tower. They called for Trickster to come out without his weapon. Trickster picked up his weapon anyway. I suppose more blood will have to be spilt today. Trickster stormed down the stairs as Andrew glared at Tina with furious eyes. She betrayed his brother. I'm sorry, Andrew. I had to call the cops. Trickster's insane. Andrew pulled Ava by the arm aggressively. They all rushed down the stairs. Andrew expected to see a massacre of soldiers, but it was quite the opposite. Trickster was standing in front of the soldiers who were bowing down to him. One of the soldiers, dressed in black armor like the rest, stood. He looked to Ava and then back at Trickster again. Whatever you're planning with the Nova, we want to be a part of it too. The soldiers weren't there to kill Trickster, but to join him. They all cheered and shouted for Trickster to be their new leader. Trickster then turned around and he held his hand out for Ava. She moved backward, but Andrew pushed her forward with him. Come, my plans lie in the woods. Trickster gathered his troops to the entrance of the woods. They waited in the fields and surrounded Ava to keep her in their sights. Trickster then took Andrew, Tina, the village elder, and Kendra toward the base of the Tree of Life. As nightfall hit, the torches were lit. Down the stone tablet path, with torches in the grass lined up along it, laid the Tree of Life. Dead leaves were scattered along the ground. The place was dead silent and sad. The roots were humongous, only to hold the gigantic base of the trunk. Down a steep hill, slightly hidden underneath the oversized roots, was the door to the supposed Promised Land. Andrew and Tina pushed Kendra and the village elder along. Trickster stopped near the door and turned to the older man, whose beard reached the floor. He held his cane firmly as Kendra stood close to him. They both felt protective over each other, fearing death. Elder, if I may ask you, how does one open the door to the Promised Land? The elder heaved. Kendra interrupted. But the Promised Land is now cursed after what the humans have done. No one should open the door. The elder was next to interrupt. What exactly is it that you want? Trickster clenched his fist and his armor clinked. Power. To make the power behind the door my own. The elder along with Kendra shook their heads in anger. Nonsense. If you were to do that, this whole world would be consumed by the Nova's malice. The world would be plunged into everlasting darkness, said the elder with a weak breath. Tina and Andrew glanced to each other in fear. Tina sunk into Andrew's arms for comfort. Trickster was adamant on his plans. What of it? Do you really think I care what happens to the world? Andrew gave a stern glare to his brother, seeing clearly that he's changed for the worst. Trickster grew impatient. If you plan to remain silent on the matter, perhaps Ava will prove to be more helpful. But how much more torment can the maiden take before she talks? Trickster turned his back to leave, so Kendra broke under pressure. Wait! Trickster turned around with a dark smirk. Kendra sighed, knowing she had to protect her daughter no matter what the cost. The key to that unholy realm lies in the Forgotten Temple, but the door to the temple will only open with the permission of the elders of this ancient wood. You must seek them out yourself. Trickster grinned. He threw his hand up in the air to taunt Kendra and the elder. You're easily swayed. He laughed maniacally. As Trickster, Tina, and Andrew tried to find their way out of the woods, the troops were rallying themselves up. The main admiral that Trickster appointed ahead of the soldiers tried to execute Trickster's plans. Listen up, troops. We're here to search the forest. There is something in these woods that will help us open the door to the Tree of Life. The guard lifted his arms in the air. Ava was forced to stand right next to him. It is essential that we achieve this critical objective, and to help us with our task today, he pointed to Ava as she looked away annoyed. We have the last Nova. She'll be serving as our guide. As proud soldiers we must strive for the sake of our new leader, Trickster. She folded her arms and rolled her eyes. Trickster and the others made it to the truth just as he finished up his speech. Failure is not an option. Make this mission a success or else. The soldiers all cheered as Trickster grabbed Ava and forced her toward the entrance of the woods. Ava took in a deep breath and walked further through the woods. The forest was silent as it was dying. The only noise came from the clinking sound of the soldiers' armor. Ava really had no clue as to where she was going until she noticed a fork in the road. Dead leaves scattered each road. When the wind blew, it only scattered the dead leaves on the right side. Ava followed her instinct and the wind until they found a straight dirt path through the thicket. Everyone turned their gaze around to each other and to the forest as they heard sudden screams. The soldiers would point to the left and then to the right as the screams were coming from different soldiers that were being picked off. Trickster pulled Ava into him as he drew his sword. "What's going on?" Ava tried to pull away from him. "I don't know." Andrew and Tina drew their weapons next. Vines then dropped from above and snatched up many of the soldiers into the trees. Their screams echoed throughout the wood. Trickster yanked Ava further down the only possible path. "Keep moving," he ordered. Everyone eyed the woods and kept their weapons close. More screams were heard. Not one soldier knew when he would be the next to go. The anxiety shook the strongest soldiers' confidence. Courage couldn't exist in such a place. The humans feared what type of power they were after. Trickster, on the other hand, wanted the power all the more. Down the road was a small cave leading up a steep slope. As they reached the top of the slope where the cave ended, a small shrine was set below. Trickster dragged Ava to the wide trunk of a tree. The tree had two carved lines slightly apart from each other. They were in the form of eyelids. The tree also had a wide nose and crooked lips. The others thought it was just a deformity to the tree trunk, So where is this old geezer? Tina asked. Ava put her ear to the tree. "You assume it's human?" Ava said with a smirk. She then pointed back to the supposed lips of the tree. "He's breathing. I think this is the elder." Trickster started to tap the tree with his sword. "Wake up," he ordered. While the soldiers were trying to agitate the tree with their swords, Ava noticed a red cardinal. It chirped at her. She followed the bird to the side of the dirt mountain. She noticed a white tower high atop the dirt mountain, but there was no way of reaching it. She puzzled the thought. Andrew noticed Ava was gone. He ran to the side until he caught up with her. "Where do you think you're going?" Ava ignored him and bit her lip as she focused on something else. She put her hand on the dirt wall. "How do I get up there?" A green vine from above suddenly dropped down. It wrapped around her wrist, and it pulled her high atop the mountainside. "Ava!" Andrew looked all around for a way to run after her. Tina and Trickster ran over to Andrew. "What happened?" Tina yelled. Trickster held his breath. "Why didn't you watch her?" Andrew kicked the side of the mountain. His anger got the best of him as the dirt and rocks fell from the side of the mountain. Ava then looked back over the mountain. "I'm okay." Andrew pointed his sword at her. "Get down here!" Ava ignored him and rolled her eyes. She looked around to see the white tower again. She walked up the bright white stairs to reach the small round section surrounded by broken white pillars. She noticed a green spiral on the middle tile. It was the same mark on her wrist. She sank down to the center tile, and as soon as she touched it, the spiral began to look green. Ava immediately had her energy drained. She collapsed and blacked out. Her energy was stolen in order to revive the elder tree. The giant tree in the center of the shrine opened his giant green eyes. His leaves and branches began to shake. Cracking came from the bark, so Andrew and the others rushed to the front of the tree. The bark in the center snapped until it revealed a mouth with sharp wood chunks as deadly teeth. This was no longer a friendly elder. The soldiers by the tree were smashed by his roots. The elder's branches spread, and he grabbed some of the soldiers that he trapped in his roots. He lifted them up and consumed them. Trickster, Tina, and Andrew drew their swords along with many of their soldiers. They were being tossed like a salad. They were no match for the elder tree.